The year was 1888, when Queen Victoria travelled north to Scotland and up the River Clyde to Glasgow, trekking up the hills to West End's Kelvingrove Park, site of that year's Glasgow International Exhibition, a park named after University of Glasgow scientist Kelvin, perhaps glancing at his glass instruments, instrumental in discoveries launching the Industrial Revolution. Proceeds from the event funded the construction of Glasgow's Kelvingrove Art Gallery and Museum, now featuring work displayed during the event. As does the Hunterian Museum up the hill from Kelvingrove, named after physician William Hunter. The Hunterian Museum exemplifies the teamwork that goes behind illuminating windows throughout history with a science on how to exhibit museology. Following one display exercise, I researched the Shepherdess watercolor design by E.A. Taylor, intended for a stained glass window in Glasgow. The backstory was offered in London-based journal The Studio, which outlined Taylor's appreciation of the subtleties of color in the fields, the woods, and the wild things that was so powerfully to influence the artist's life and work. The Burrell collection features rooms and rooms of antique glass, primarily from other countries, as much of the glass from the Middle Ages was destroyed in Scotland during the Reformation, and sadly, yet another revolution led to the demise of Glasgow's architectural treasures during the 1950s, 60s, and 70s. Innovative engineering and transport led to the demolition of row houses, intricately decorated of red and gold sandstone, by craftsmen shown in glass performing their trades and walks of life.
Boar and bears were hunted only by royals and nobles in land set aside just for them. On the right, we can see hunters riding on horseback. Their hounds, specially trained dogs, drive the stags towards the river.
The Willow Tea Room, an innovative gathering place, was built by Kate Cranston in partnership with her brother Stuart, a tea importer in 1894. The tea house was decorated by Charles Rennie Mackintosh and his wife Margaret MacDonald with glass panel. Much of the wealth in Glasgow was tied to transport, in tandem with slavery the century before. This occurred indirectly through the owners of plantations of tea and tobacco, who were dependent on foreign production and imports back to Scotland, with profits flowing into the merchant district of Glasgow, home to the Willow Tea Room. The Scottish £20 note features entrepreneur Kate Cranston to this day. Edinburgh was lovely. Pictures don't do it justice. The rustling of the leaves and slight breeze, view of the water and sun shining on hills afar, looking down on a beautiful city more colorful In the
than
19th
Paris.
century, Scots uncovered the Antonine Wall, a Roman structure built in 145 AD, marking the northernmost boundary of Roman colonization, Britannica's final frontier. According to David Gamester, in The Director's Choice, Roman architecture, in particular the stone buildings with glass windows and decorated columns, would have looked and felt very alien to the native Iron Age population. If one were to pull these bits of glass together or fuse them into a colorful panel representing Caledonian glass through the centuries, one would begin with the Burrell collection. These exhibits show that in the early years, small glass panels were made by covering a cylinder with molten sand. These were unrolled as they cooled. In the past, big sheets of glass could only be made by joining many small pieces together with lead, and each panel could be a different shade. This meant that windows could be brightly colored kaleidoscopes. The fusing of styles in Scotland during the late 19th century incorporated aspects of ancient Celtic styles with medieval glass remnants and the modern movement. Embracing this style were artists Charles Rennie Mackintosh and E.A. Taylor, among others. During this time, manufacturers of stained glass windows sprung up across Great Britain. While visiting the University of Glasgow archives, photographing letters from stained glass artist Harry Clark from Ireland to Glasgow's E.A. Taylor in 1915, I came across a letter from Adam Smith to David Hume from the 1700s. Smith, often called the father of economics, had taught philosophy at the University of Glasgow.